So we've just created our event, we've added the amount of people, we've added the dishes that we want in the event, and all we have to do now is just generate the shopping list. And the shopping list is now generating, and here's all the stuff that we need to buy. Simple as that. Really, one click. How difficult is that? Hey everybody, how's it going? Alex here, and today we're going to take a look at how to create an Airtable for your restaurant or event managing business. I mean, at least for a part of that operation, and that is the generation of a simple shopping list. We're not really going to be dealing with stock management per se, but this is something that gets asked of us a lot every week. So I thought, hey, why not do a quick video on this? So let's get started. So if you've been following the channel for a while now, you know how this works. We'll typically go through our DB and the way that it's set up. We're going to go next through the automations process, and finally we're going to close off with a quick brief demo of the whole thing working together. So let's get started. In this particular case, database is laid bare in front of us. There's not much going on. I think everything is kind of very, very clear. We have our list of events. Right now, as you can see, I've already generated a shopping list previously. And yeah, there's not much to this. In our events table, we just have the collection of our events. Right now, we only have one. And next, we have the number of people from bookings. It's just the amount of people that we want to have for the event. Next, we have the dishes that we want to incorporate in that event. Then again, this is just a link to event dishes, by the way, with allowed linking to multiple records. Next, we have the generate shopping list trigger. You probably know how this is gonna work by now, but I'm gonna explain it. But this is a really typical trigger that we use in the channel a lot. Then we have our list generation status. This is again something that I like to use a lot in all of my Airtable automations and videos. I want to know what's happening, so this is just a simple text. Next, we have the events shopping list. Again, just linking to the event shopping list table, as you can see right there. Next, we have the total cost of food, which is essentially just a roll-up of the total purchasing cost from the event shopping list, and then the total value of leftover ingredients, which is again just a simple roll-up of the total leftover cost from the event shopping list. Now, let's take a look at event dishes. Again, super simple. We have our name here, which is just a concatenated dish string. Then we have our event, just links back to the event. Dish links to dishes. Next, we have total cost single serving. This is the total cost of the single serving, of a single serving. And there are a few hidden fields, so let me just bring those up. Excellent. So first and foremost, we have serves from dish, which is a lookup of the amount of people. Again, this is just a formula field from dish that tells us how many people each dish serves. Then the total cost per recipe serving, which is, again, we're looking up the roll-up of total cost per serving from the dish table. Next, we have total cost single serving, where we divide the total cost per recipe serving divided by serves from dish, because essentially most recipes are designed to serve 2 people. So in this case, I want to know the exact cost for one person, essentially. Then we have the lookup of people from bookings from events, which we just saw earlier. And there's also the override of number of people. So you might want to say that, you know what, yes, I have 20 people for my event, but ultimately I don't want 40 dishes of Napolitana and carbonara. I might just want to do something like 15 and 15 because I want to limit the amount of waste. So yeah, 15 portions of that, 15 portions of that. And yeah, total number of people simply is an if statement that says, you know what, if override is not blank, use the override. If in any other case, just use the amount of people from the bookings. Finally, we have the shopping list link. Again, just links to the shopping list, and we're allowing multiple records. Let's take a look at the shopping list. So here, I've got some old records. Let me just delete those. In the shopping list, we have these particular fields. Let's take a look. We also have some hidden fields, actually. Let me just open them up. Excellent. So we begin with the name, which is essentially just a concatenated string that's comprised of store product, space X space, total quantity to buy. Makes sense, right? I want to know that I need to buy, 7 spaghettoni pastas, or 4 packs of peeled tomatoes. Next, we have a link to the event because I want to be able to have a clear, direct relationship of each shopping list item to the event that it's against. Next, we have total people having ingredient. So this is 4 dishes, which this is a link to event dishes, where we were just now. And we are bringing in the total number of people and just summing up that value in here. And then 4 dishes, we have this just allow linking to multiple records. Again, just linking back to event dishes. Next, we have the store product, and the beauty of the system is that it will give you the total amount of store products that you need to buy for each particular dish. And yeah, that's gorgeous because you don't get a duplicated version of that particular store product. Next, we have the basic ingredient from the store product. So even though this is monograno felicetti mat spaghettoni pasta as a pack, right? And this is what you buy at the store, but really it's just dried spaghetti number 5 pasta. Really, that's what it is as a basic ingredient that is used in the recipe. Next, we have a lookup of that basic ingredient from that store product. Next, we have the typical usage unit of measure from the basic ingredient from the store product. In other words, I'm looking up from the store product the typical usage UIM. So we are typically using grams of this particular store product. Sometimes we might be using tablespoons, like in salt. Sometimes we'll be using pieces. We're going to get to this very, very shortly in our basic ingredients table. So yeah, I'm basically just looking up that typical usage unit of measure value. Next, the quantity that is required. Again, a little bit of automation magic does the calculations for that. Next, we have the exact quantity of store product required. So this is giving us the closest amount of this store product that we need in order to hit the requirements for that event, for the people requirements of that event. Then we simply roll this up. Not roll this up, apologies. We round this up, yeah, like so, where we use the roundup formula, then the exact quantity, and then comma 0, so that we get a nice flat number that is always rounded up. Following that, we have our leftovers, which essentially is the total quantity to buy minus the exact quantity of store product required. So 7 minus 6.4 equals 0.6, and that is how much leftover product you get. Then we have quantity leftover in typical UOM, so it gives you essentially the amount of leftovers you have in your typical usage. So essentially you will have 300 grams of pasta left over, 1,000 grams of peeled tomatoes, and so forth. And this is how this is done. I just basically have my rounding of the leftovers, a space, and then I'm just bringing in the typical usage UOM value in so that the end result looks like that. Next, we have a lookup of 1 sold by UOM equals typical UOM from store product. So this is very interesting. Essentially, this is a lookup, and I'm going to talk about this in a sec, of this particular field from the store product table. What this is essentially one sold by unit of measure equals typical UOM. So one pack of pasta is 500 grams of pasta. One typical 4-pack of plum tomatoes is 2,000 grams of plum tomatoes, and so forth. So we need that value in here. Next, we have the cost from stored product. Very simple, just looking up the cost of how much each store-bought product cost. Then we calculate the total leftover cost, quantity leftover times cost from stored product. And finally, the purchasing cost, quantity to buy times cost from stored product. Simple, right? Next, we have our basic ingredients. This is just a list of basic ingredients. There's only one hidden field, which is just used in our automation process later on. Essentially, we have our name, dried spaghetti number 5 pasta, salt, basil, garlic cloves, pancetta, and so forth. Then we have our basic ingredient, record ID, just the record ID from this particular record. We're going to be using that in our automations later on. Our typical UOM, so typically we would, in our recipes, count the pasta in grams, our canned tomatoes in grams, our salt in tablespoons, our basil in pieces, our garlic cloves in pieces. I think you see the point. I think you see where I'm going with this. So the typical UOM needs to be here. The choices that I've put in, I mean, you can put whatever you need, but I've put the typical, most popular units of measure over there. Next, we have our link to recipes. So again, allow linking to multiple records, store products. This is a one-on-one relationship where we link this basic ingredient to a store product. For the demo right now, I'm not really using anything fancy. I'm just saying, there is one type of pasta, one type of store product, but essentially the system is designed and could be, I think, upgraded to handle multiple different store-bought products for each basic ingredient, and you could technically choose what you want at the end of the day as a store product for that particular basic ingredient. Next, we just basically have our store products, as I said. Next, we have the typical UOM from the store products, just the cost of the per typical UOM. We're gonna check that out in a sec. And another lookup of cost from store products, just the general cost. So this particular cost is the cost per 1 gram, let's say, of dried pasta. That is 0.013 something. Typical cost for 1 gram of canned tomatoes is 0.00. So basically we need those costs in here. Next, let's take a look at recipes. So recipes, not much to call home about here. We're just saying, what is the dish? Maybe, in fact, let's take a look at dishes first. So we have 2 dishes here, and I'm not a chef, so I decided to go with some simple pasta dishes. Napolitana and carbonara. Serving size, super easy, just 2 people or 4 people. I think most people will default, most chefs will typically calculate based on a serving of 2. So I think it's good to have a default option of 2 here, which then serves 2. There is a hidden field in here, which is the dish record ID, which we're going to be using shortly in our automation. So that's that. Serves 2. Again, I'm just extracting the value out of the serving size. So if it's 2 people, it's 2. If I flip that to 4 people, that's 4. Basically extracting the numerical value out of that dropdown. Next, link to recipes. Super simple. Next, a lookup of the store products from ingredient from recipes, like so. Total cost per serving. Recipes, amount times cost, just summing that up. And event menus. Just making sure that we're linking this particular dish to our event menu. Technically, this label in here in event dishes should contain something more, like maybe the name of the event or something like that. Yeah, I think it's going to be nicer, right? So if I'm here in the dishes, I can see, oh, this dish has been in the grand opening event. Oh, it was also here. So yeah, that's the whole point of changing the label. Next, yeah, recipes. We do have quite a few hidden fields here, but we're gonna go over them. So I'm just gonna show all of them up. Excellent. So first and foremost, the name, the amount, the unit of measurement, space, the ingredient, space, pipe, space, and then the dish. So ultimately, it looks like this. So the dish is what? Pasta carbonara, 160 grams of dried spaghetti number 5, and then pasta carbonara, 70 grams of pancetta, and so forth, right? So those are our recipes. Next, our label, our name for that particular ingredient as part of that recipe. Next, we have dishes, right? So the linked dish, only one. You can't marry this particular combo of quantity and ingredient to any other dish. It's unique every time. So yeah, that's that. Next, we have the dish record ID from dish, which is just a lookup of the dish record ID from the dish field. I'm also concatenating that, so I'm stripping it off its property of being an array behind the scenes. I think I've discussed this before, but generally speaking, lookups aren't just the simple things that they look like. They are arrays behind the scenes. If you're not sure what arrays are, I suggest take a quick Google search and you'll see what an array is in terms of programming languages. So yeah, basically all you really have to know is that I'm concatenating that lookup, and yeah, they look the same, but they behave in a very different way when it comes to automations. So it's necessary that you take that step too. Next, ingredient, link to ingredients. Very simple. Next, we have the store products from ingredients. So the store products from our basic ingredients, we need to bring that in. We are then, what are we doing? We're just concatenating the name of the store product from the ingredient. Yep, just looks like that. Then we have our basic ingredient record ID from ingredients. We're bringing that in. We saw that just a few seconds ago, and we're also then doing the same thing with a concatenation. We're stripping that array property out of this and just making this a simple string. Next, we have a lookup of the cost per typical UIM from store products from ingredient, and it looks basically like this. So yeah, this is again the cost per gram of the ingredient. The UOM comes in here, so grams, amount, and we finally have our amount x cost. Super easy. Cost per typical UOM from store products times the amount. Next, we have the lookup of the cost from store products. Like I said previously, this is just the cost per gram or per UOM, essentially, of that basic ingredient. Now, then we have UOM again as part of the recipe. So you're just defining this again here. Maybe it's a little bit useless, but I did this anyway for some reason. So yeah, UOM again here, the amount, and finally the amount x cost. Super simple. Cost per typical UOM from store products from ingredients times the amount. Simple as that. Next, we finally have arrived at store products. So this is just a simple marriage, right? We just create our list of store-bought products. I've enhanced this a little bit to include the images, because maybe you want to print this out later on. Maybe we'll do another video on that. Wink, wink. Include the image. Always nice. then we link the store-bought product to the basic ingredient table, like so, and then we define the sold by UOM. Typically it's a pack, right? Most things that are being bought by chefs and restaurateurs, they are sold in a pack. They're sold in a pack style. So yeah, sold by UOM, as you can see, is just typical. So typically things are being sold by UOM when it comes to restaurants getting their supplies, and typically it's a pack of something. So you would get, 10 packs of some kind of thing, but it's usually a pack. Although I've included everything else, but I don't think anybody would sell you anything in milliliters or liters, maybe kilograms. Something like meat, I think, would be sold in kilograms instead of packs. But yeah, this is that. Then this is one sold by UOM equals typical UOM. In other words, this sounds like a complicated naming convention for a simple field like this, but all I'm really saying here is that one pack is equal to how much of the typical UOM. So one pack of spaghetti is 500 grams of pasta. One pack of the cereal peeled plum tomatoes 4-pack is 200 grams of canned tomatoes. One pack of Whole Foods organic basil typically contains 15 pieces of basil. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Next we have our cost per unit. Then we have our typical cost per typical UOM. So in other words, how much does each one of these grams cost? And then I have something that I created for my own self so that everything kind of like makes sense. And this is just a conversion explanation. Super simple. It just helps me understand. So one pack of monograno felice blah 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 is equal to 500 grams of dried spaghetti number 5 pasta. This is how I'm done this. It's a little bit annoying, but it works. So just a hard-coded one, sold by UOM of, and then there's like a little apostrophe there, then the name, and then we have another apostrophe, and then a space, is equal to sold by UOM, a space, typical usage UOM from basic ingredients, and then of, and then a lower. Basically, I'm making sure that the basic ingredient is always spelled in lowercase. So yeah, that's that, and the result comes up like that. And finally, a link to my shopping list with multiple linkings allowed. So yeah, that's it in terms of our database design breakdown. Let's now take a look at how things go with automations. All right, so now let's take a look at how the automations run. And it's not the most complicated thing in the world, I would say. So yeah, in our typical fashion, we have our trigger, which, as you can see, just generally speaking, generates the shopping list, and it gets triggered by the generate shopping list checkbox in the events table. We also run our typical script that you have seen a bunch of times on this channel. Yeah, just copy the script. Don't forget to change the webhook. And then finally, don't forget to the input variable in here, record underscore capital I lowercase t, and match the map the Airtable record ID in there. Typical, finish editing, turn this thing on. And that's all there is to that part of triggering the automation. Next, let's take a look at the actual make automation that takes place. So this is basically it. It looks scarier than it actually is. We've done much worse, I believe. So yeah, essentially we have a trigger here where our webhook essentially lands. Then we have our matching, or rather getting the information out of that events record ID. Then we split things. So first and foremost, what this first split does, it essentially deletes, if you've made some changes to your amount of people or something like that for your event, it will update the status first to say clearing old records, right? And then we'll just iterate through the event's shopping list and delete these shopping list records, because now that our quantities have changed, right, and we're regenerating the shopping list, we want to clear it out first and then begin reworking the shopping list. So yeah, that is why that exists. And yeah, essentially this is the filter for that action, where the length of the shopping list is greater than 0. In other words, our shopping list actually has stuff in it. So if that's the case, we need to clear all the old stuff first before we proceed with the rest. Next, what we are doing, we are getting the event again, because if this is the case and we move down this path, we want to make sure that the event has all but cleared, and we want to get information from here, from the clean shopping list less event, right? So we do that, then we update the status of that event to say generating shopping list, and then we also print the shopping list generation status back over here. We've done this before a bunch of times in previous videos, so yeah, nothing new. Then iterator. So we iterate through the dishes, we get the dish, and this is specifically the event dishes, not our general recipe dishes, so to speak. And then from here, we aggregate the following fields: the ID, the dish, the total amount of people, and I think that's it. Yes. Next, we update the status again of the event to say adding records to list, like so. Then we have 2 paths. So the way that this is going to work with make is that the first path is going to be this top one, as you can see, this part, and then as soon as this whole process is done, only that particular task will run as well. So this particular status update is just the complete, right? So essentially the idea here is that I want to add all my shopping list items and then say that, hey, job done, right? So super easy to set this up. Let's take a look. So first and foremost, we need to iterate through array number 8, this little array that we created here. Next, we get the dish out of the typical dishes, out of the recipe dishes. Then we iterate the recipes and we get each recipe record. And then we create yet another aggregator. In this case, what we need to bring is the UOM, the amount, the dish record ID, the basic ingredient record ID, like so. Also, we are bringing in, just missed it, the ID out of iterator number 10 here, and the total number of people. And I think that was it. Yes. Finally, we group it by store products from ingredients, then add a double pipe, and then we also add the store products from ingredients - name, both from module 14, from our recipe record. So this is how that aggregator needs to be set up. Then we get the store product. So essentially what this particular results in, this grouping, it results in all the unique ingredients, more specifically store-bought products that exist across all of our recipes. And what I'm doing here is that I'm getting that store product, and I'm doing that in a very interesting, clever manner. Remember here we created this group by. So what I'm doing here in my group by, the first part of it actually includes the record ID of that store-bought product. So what I'm doing here is I'm splitting my grouping by the pipes, and that creates an array, okay, up until here. And then I'm doing a getting the first item out of that array. And as you can see from a previous example, I'm that is the record ID of that particular store-bought item. So this is literally what I'm doing. I'm getting all the unique store-bought products. Then I'm taking the array out of number 13, the array, not the grouping. I'm setting up a variable, I've just called it A, which divides the amount by 2 and multiplies that number by the total number of people. Okay? Next, I'm simply summing up all of these values that occur. And finally, the pièce de résistance is the creation of the shopping list item. Super easy. Create a record, and what we need to do is we need to match the event. We can grab that from module number 2, way back in the beginning, right? From over here. Next, we are essentially bringing in the dish. So I'm mapping out I'm using map out of array number 13, out of here. I'm mapping the ID, mapping out the ID value out of that array. So this one, and you can do that like so. Then I'm doing the split of store-bought products. And again, I'm doing the same thing like I did over here in the store product. I'm splitting my group and getting the first result out of that array. And that is always going to be a record ID. So that will map that there. The quantity required is this particular result over here, because that will bring me all the amounts of that particular store-bought products together and just sum them up. Quantity to buy, that basically divides the result, 26, by the one sold by UOM, typical UOM. So that is that. Now, let's take a quick look at how this whole thing works all together. I'm going to press this and just run this once. And I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to uncheck and recheck this process. It should trigger over here. First, as you can see, it's deleting all of my event shopping list items. And now it's going ahead and generating my list of items. And finally, it has updated the whole shopping list. As you can see, the total food cost is less because we played around with our event dishes. So we changed the amount of people earlier on the video. And from 20, we made it down to 15 of each dish. So therefore, shopping list quantities have changed. So yeah, hopefully this made sense. Let me know what you think about this particular approach. Was this any good? Did it help you? And yeah, looking forward to the next one. Cheers, guys. Thanks.